Kristine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. I took an oath when I became a state rep, and my oath said, along with everyone else who took this oath, I do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me as a state representative, according to the best of my abilities, agreeable to the rules and regulation of this Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God. Everyone took that oath. On October 26, we were in session, and at the end of that session, a young representative stood up and put the legislative body on notice that we need to uphold that Constitution, that oath to uphold the Constitution. I bring this to your attention tonight for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that part of your duties as under Article 38 of the Constitution, a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and a consistent adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality, and all the social virtues are indispensably necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. The people ought, therefore, to have particular regard to all of those principles in the choice of their officers and representatives, and they have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant observance of them in the formation and execution of laws necessary for the administration of government. Basically, that says you can't waste the people's money, okay? So, being put on notice, there's a large group of, not legislators, but people who we answer to, a large group who have asked legislators to stand up and defend the Constitution in many, many areas. And one of the most important areas is in election integrity. There are multiple notifications going out to different bodies to be put on notice that they need to uphold the laws. I bring this to your attention tonight because according to Article 32 of the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire, and I read it to you, the meeting for the choice of governor, council, and senators shall be warned by warrant from the selectmen and governed by a moderator who shall, in the presence of the selectmen, whose duty shall be to attend an open meeting, receive the votes of all the inhabitants of such towns and wards present and qualified to vote for senators, and shall, in said meetings, in the presence of said selectmen and of the town or city clerk at said meeting, sort and count the said votes, and make a public declaration therefore with the name of every person voted for the number of votes for each person, and the town or city clerk shall make a fair record of the same at large. The voting machines are illegal under the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire. On November 29th, the Supreme Court is hearing testimony to that. It has been 3 years in the making to hear testimony to that. They are illegal under the Constitution. There are RSAs that are allowing them and have allowed them since 1979. But the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire supersedes any RSA. Therefore, I am asking you to perhaps pick what machine you would like to use, but I'm asking you, because of the frugality of your position, not to spend any of the taxpayers' money until you find out what the outcome of these notices to the Secretary of State and the Supreme Court judgment is. Thank you.
Thank you. Business. Our town moderator, Jonathan Kipp, adoption of a new electronic ballot counting devices. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first presentation that the town council has seen. We are learning about this as you are learning about this. So this is going to be our first exposure to what the state has been vetting out for the last, what seems like a couple of years.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm Jonathan Kipp, your town moderator, joined tonight by
Sherry Farrell, your town clerk.
and also Cindy Rice Conley is with us in the audience tonight, our school district moderator. So as you said, this is your first introduction to this. It's been a long process that we've been going through to try to identify ballot counting devices for use in New Hampshire. And a point of clarification, they're sometimes referred to as tabulators, sometimes devices, sometimes machines. And I may use all three of those terms while we're discussing it tonight, so it all means the same thing. You have a single sheet in your packet, a fact sheet, and at the top it lists the RSA that, as per my understanding, this body, the governing body, needs to approve the use of devices and which device will be used and notify the Secretary of State about that decision. And that's why we're here tonight. We're asking you to adopt a new electronic ballot counting device. So some of this is review for you. This is a refresher. The New Hampshire Ballot Law Commission must approve tabulators for use in New Hampshire. And right now, there's only one tabulator approved for use, and it's the AccuVote machine, which we have 4 of here in Londonderry. And we've had them for many, many years. And as I presented to this board before, they're very near the end of their life. So the Ballot Law Commission knew that, the Secretary of State knew that, so they initiated a process over 2 years ago to try to identify replacement tabulators for us. And I'm just going to review some of the steps in the process because representatives from Londonderry were actively involved in many, many of those steps, including attending the Ballot Law Commission meetings. So in 2022 and 2023, several jurisdictions were selected by the Secretary of State to use 3 devices that the Ballot Law Commission had identified as potential for use in New Hampshire. Those 3 are the Dominion ImageCast Precinct 2 device, represented by LHS Associates in Salem. The second one is Voting Works, which is an open source device. And the third one was Electronic Systems and Software, ES&S, as it's known. So devices from those 3 manufacturers were used on a trial basis in elections in New Hampshire, including here in Londonderry in March of this year, our town and school election this year. We had 6 of the LHS Dominion devices, which were used on a trial basis. And for every trial that was conducted throughout the state on the various devices, the Secretary of State, in collaboration with the hosting jurisdiction, performed an audit following the election, not a recount. It was simply an audit to determine whether or not the machines accurately counted the ballots that were fed through them. And in every single case, the audit was deemed successful, which means these devices accurately read New Hampshire ballots. So following our trial in March, elections were held in other parts of the state on May 9th. I attended the Moulton Borough Town election in the morning, where I got to see the Voting Works device at an election. Then in the afternoon, I went over to Hanover to see the ES&S device in action. So as a result of that, those of us here in Londonderry have had the opportunity to see each one of these devices at an actual election. I share this with you to let you know that I believe we've done a lot of due diligence to try to make the best recommendation we can make to you tonight. Following that, on August 2nd, the Secretary of State hosted a demonstration day, a day where they demonstrated the ballot counting devices, the 3 contenders, at the Legislative Office Building. That was open to legislators, the public, school and town officials, and there was a good turnout. We had an opportunity to hear presentations from each of the manufacturers and their representatives, to see a demonstration of the machines, to actually try them, test them out, put them through their paces, kick the tires, if you will. In following that, we each offered individual feedback that the Secretary of State used. and the Ballot Law Commission. So following that, the Ballot Law Commission eliminated the ES&S device, which left them with two, the LHS Dominion device and the Voting Works device. And on September 15th, the Ballot Law Commission conditionally approved those two devices to be used starting with the local elections in March of 2024. So I'll back you up a little bit. It appears we're going to have a presidential primary election in January, so we will not have new devices for that should we choose to move forward with this. We'll still be using our AccuVote devices. So once those two were identified as being conditionally approved, we, Londonderry, issued a request for proposal from each of them. And once we received those two proposals back, Sherry took a copy, Cindy, our school moderator, took a copy, I took a copy, we individually reviewed them, and then we compared notes. And we unanimously recommend the LHS Dominion ImageCast precinct device to adopt here in Londonderry. Now, if you review or if you'll take a look at the document that's in your packet, there are just a few of the entries that I'd like to review with you. One is the 3-year total cost of acquisition. The purchase price plus the warranty that's included for the first 3 years, the difference in the two costs is $950 over the course of 3 years, with Dominion being slightly higher. Second important factor is the number of jurisdictions where these approved machines, are currently being used. The LHS device, there's 42 different jurisdictions throughout New England, and Voting Works has devices deployed in 5 counties in Mississippi. And the total number of devices deployed in New England is 349 for the Dominion ImageCast precinct device and 72 in Mississippi for Voting Works. So those are important factors that we considered. And I'll also remind you, it's there also on the sheet, that the Voting Works device uses open source software. So given the very close, the financials being so close, we recommend the Dominion ImageCast Precinct 2 for 3 primary differentiating reasons. One is their widespread use throughout the country and throughout New England with LHS. A second one is the Dominion device physically separates ballots with write-in votes in the ballot box at the bottom. There's a separate compartment that is sealed, and the write-ins go in there. With the Voting Works device, those write-in ballots are not physically separated, but they are adjudicated at the end using a laptop, or the laptop brings up an image of each of them. The machine knows that it went through, and it captures the image that we would then review on a laptop to adjudicate those ballots. The use of laptops with determining voting outcomes, vote results, is coming. I'm still pretty old-fashioned. I like to handle the ballots with the write-ins and look at them myself just to be sure, so I'm not quite ready for the laptop for that yet. And then the third part, and I think this is critically important, is LHS Associates located in Salem, their proven record of service to our community. And I need go no further than the November 2020 general election, when one of our AccuVote devices failed to print its record of the votes at the end of the evening. So in consultation with an attorney from the Attorney General's office that night, the Secretary of State's office, it was determined we needed to recount all 17,000 ballots that had been cast that day. And it was probably within half an hour. LHS had staff on site with spare machines, and our good friends in Milford also brought a couple of tabulators over, so we were able to make fairly quick work of that process. But I think that demonstrates the responsiveness of the LHS staff. So for those 3 reasons primarily, we recommend the adoption of the LHS Dominion ImageCast Precinct 2 by the town of Londonderry. Sherry, anything to add?
No, as you can tell, we've really done our homework on this. Londonderry leads the way when it comes to elections, too, because of our transparency and because of the amount of effort that we share with our Secretary of State, Dave Scanlon. So if you have any questions, please ask. Voting Works is definitely something new on the horizon, but it really isn't tested yet as far as how they're going to service us. Presently, they don't have anyone available in the state of New Hampshire. That's concerning if we do have a problem. So again, that's why, we losing my voice. That's why we're definitely suggesting to everyone that LHS is the way to go.
Questions?
Mr. Chair,
Please proceed.
just as a point of personal observation, when I had attended the LHS when we did that, I don't know if pilot's the proper term, but the training and that trial of the Dominion, I'd like to elucidate a little bit about the write-in ballots. Knowing that it goes in a separate compartment and also having the ability to audibly hear just the difference of the sounds of the paper, knowing that it went somewhere else, either it was an empty or a near empty ballot container, and it was separated from the regular done ballots, I think was for me a little bit reassuring, and just wanted to kind of expand upon that. So thank you. Great presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, please.
I think really a big piece of this that stands out is how much staff and how quickly they will be willing to come and assist if there is an issue with any of the machines compared to the other company. I mean, being able to be here within about a 30-minute time frame is pretty huge, especially with how large of a voting block we have here within Londonderry. And I mean, the other company having 2 hours, and 2 hours in Londonderry for a primary or a general election, that could shut us down and push us out greatly. I mean, I think that's a huge advantage that the LHS Dominion machine has.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
The conditional approval by the Ballot Law Commission stipulates that any vendor doing business has to have somebody within 2 hours of a voting location. I think that's where their 2 hours comes from.
Yes.
As Sherry said, to our knowledge, they have nobody in the state yet, but they have guaranteed the Ballot Law Commission they will be staffed up and ready to go. I think the difference is we've seen it from LHS. We haven't yet seen it from Voting Works.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I agree with Ted. I think having that support and training that they've done the past, well, as long as I've been involved in it, 11 years, is so vital. And I can tell the people from, the citizens that the crew that handle the elections do a really good job. They start at 5 in the morning, and sometimes they're not home until 3:30 the following morning. Take it very seriously, and I can assure you that there aren't very many hiccups, and when they are, they're taken care of right away. So I totally agree with your recommendation at this point.
Please.
First, thank you both for all the work you did on this. I really appreciate that. You mentioned, Jonathan, that the old voting machines are still going to be used in January, correct? So if we decide not to vote on this tonight, it doesn't affect anything about ordering, correct? If we postpone it for one meeting? Or would it in any way impact anything if we pushed it off to the 20th?
Two things to answer that question. I think putting it off till the 20th is okay. Each vendor has asked for as much lead time as possible to make sure they can have machines available for us for March. So the what I've had in my mind is by Thanksgiving, and that 20th is obviously before Thanksgiving. The second piece of that is if we decide not to move forward, the AccuVote machines will no longer be supported after 2024. That's as long as LHS can commit to it. So our time span is limited for some sort of decision to do something, whether that's to replace them or do something else.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anything else? No? Yes? No? All right, so I got a few things here. I just did a quick calculation here. The election officials are, we are the election officials. Collectively, I mean, I've done 25 elections. I just went back and did the count. So between all of us, we've done probably 50-plus elections. In Mississippi, there are 3 million people, and there are 82 counties. So 5 counties out of 82 are using it. I don't know anything about Voting Works or anything else. I don't know how it works. I'm assuming the poll pads will continue to work with these.
They're totally separate systems. They don't work together, so the poll pads will continue to operate as they always have.
Okay, so that won't change.
Nope.
Can you ask the vendor what the lead time is on the machines?
We were
Have they given
told-
you any indication?
LHS said they'd like to know by December 1st if we're going to order machines. We didn't ask that question of Voting Works. I suspect their timeline would be similar.
I mean, the choice seems obvious. You know, if the council was to tell you tonight that we're leaning down the path of going with Dominion, and I believe Councilor Dunn is gonna ask for us to wait till the 20th. He can also invoke councilor privilege to make us wait for the 20th. Does that give you enough to start doing what you need to do?
I will say that I know towns such as Exeter and Derry have already ordered their machines, but I do agree with our moderator that I think as long as by the next date that we have a decision, because Voting Works actually, they're in the process, but they can't guarantee any machines yet. So they'll be ready for our town elections, but they're not ready yet. LHS, we just don't want to be in a situation of other towns have ordered them and, we're back ordered on them. So,
No, I appreciate your hard work.
yeah.
I just want to be able to do my due diligence and make sure that I haven't had a chance to research it on my own, so I appreciate it.
And just for a point of clarification, if I can. So the end of 2024, so December 2024 is when LHS has said they will discontinue servicing our current tabulators, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so even if we're past December 1st, just for clarification, we can still, it will not be ideal, but we can still use the AccuVote tabulators, correct?
Provided they work,
Yeah.
absolutely we
Provided they
can.
work.
Yeah.
And
And the
I was
problem,
on that.
oh, sorry, Councilor Franz. The problem is that they can't guarantee or get the parts because everything is so archaic right now with them. So that's where the weakness is. If what happens to us happens again as it did in 20, we have a major problem. Because remember, an election is considered an open meeting. So that's why we don't get to pause for 24 hours and figure out our situation. So it's something, that we have to take all of those factors into consideration.
And working both elections where we had to stay till 2, 3, 4, 6,
Yeah. 6. Yeah,
further
that one, yeah,
in the
6.
morning,
Yeah,
with that broken down
yeah.
tabulator of our current system and utilizing the most recent, the Dominion and the most recent election. I mean, for me, it's clear. So thank you. Thank you for answering my questions.
Yes, Ted.
Sure, you're in connection with many of the other state clerks across the state. Have you surveyed many of the others and where they may go?
That's a
Select-
great question, Councilor Combs. What I've found so far, and I'm part of the executive board at the state, and I work closely with Secretary Scanlon, is that the larger communities such as ours are leaning toward LHS and have already started the process. We're kind of, as a town and city clerks board, thinking that if anyone's going to try Voting Works, the smaller communities, maybe such as Moulton Borough, some of those, if they're going to try it, but there's a risk involved. But overall, to answer your question, what I've observed is that leaning toward LHS.
So there'll be a big push across the state to
Absolutely.
acquire these machines.
Absolutely.
And so that could create quite a demand and quite a lead time to get these machines. So the further we get behind in ordering them, we could be behind the 8 ball.
Absolutely.
So remember, we gotta get 200 plus of them if everybody decides to go with it, because we don't do it by county. We
Exactly.
do it by town,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
One last question is, how many total machines are we looking at?
I'm sorry, 6.
6.
We
Thank you.
have 4 now. We've had 4 since, I think, 2007. Town has grown. More voters are turning out, so we want to have the
Wonderful.
capacity.
Thank you.
all right, so here's the deal. We're either the first or the second largest polling center in the state, depending on what Derry does. Whether they split or they don't split. At the end of the day, the state lays down the law and we follow it. We're Dillon rules state. That's how we operate. So it's up to you guys. You can give them a consensus and an indication that we're leaning towards Dominion. You can invoke counselor privilege if you want to.
I would just like to put it off to the next meeting, that's all.
Well, then
I don't want to have to, if,
I mean, we can
we
just
can-
go ahead and do that.
just so that I can
Everybody
do
comfortable
my
with
own
that?
research, nothing, I just want to be able to vote. I haven't been able to do any research on any of this on my own, so.
You can invoke counselor privilege if you want.
It's, okay, I'll invoke the council privilege.
Then we're putting this off until the next meeting, but it's clear that you have an indication that we're
Yeah.
leaning towards
Thank you, Jim.
agreeing with your recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
No, we
great hearing.
appreciate that.
Point of clarification, being that counselor privilege was invoked, we shall vote on this next meeting, correct?
We have to.
We absolutely
Yeah.
have to vote on it next meeting.
Thank you.
On the selection of the machine.
Yeah. And counselors, just as a general point of knowledge, the union leader did a great job in a story just last week about Derry and their town clerk who was a past moderator and their selection and the process that they're already involved with. So that's kind of a neat one to go back to.
Thank you.
And also, if anyone wants to reach out to either of us, before the next meeting, please feel free to do that. Any way we can help, because we've done a lot of research with it. So we'd
I'd like
love
to
to
talk to both
share
of you,
it.
actually.
What?
I'd like to talk to both of you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Ron.
So-
Thank you.
So ladies and
Counselor
gentlemen,
Dunn.
counselor privilege means is there is a provision in our charter that any counselor at any time on any subject can push a decision off one meeting. Upon doing that, though, it requires us to make a decision at the next meeting. So that's how that works. Yes.
I just want us to be clear. Do you have any idea what kind of lead time they're looking at once we do put an order in?
The last we heard before orders started coming in was they'd like to have the order placed by December 1st to assure we would have delivery by our town and school elections in March.
But that's not a guarantee.
There are no guarantees.
There's no
Right.
guarantees in
So
life.
certainly, I work in the world of construction, and materials are behind everywhere. So I just really worry that they will not have the materials in time if we delay another 2 more weeks. I just want Mr. Dunn to understand that, sorry, Councilor Dunn to understand that if we delay another 2 more weeks, what this could be for our town election.
Well, hopefully we have a strong enough relationship with LHS that they're gonna hear what we did and they're gonna feel good about taking a risk.
I hope so.
Anything further? Thank you.
Thank you
Welcome.
both.
Thank
Thank you very much.